The Electoral College is a winner-take-all system based on each state, and the number of electors is the same as the number of the state delegation in Congress. So it's the number of representatives plus the 2 senators. And what that does is that weights the state entity more heavily, because a small state like Delaware or Montana has larger representation than it might deserve otherwise based on population. But that was the intention of the founders. The states were really important to them, and they had strong identities as members of their, or citizens of their states, and they thought of themselves as Georgians or New Yorkers. And so they wanted that state as a political unit to be very important in the process. The Electoral College has recently come under criticism because it's not a strict majority rule institution. It really, you can have a popular vote, as you did with Al Gore, and the electoral vote that's different, and then the electoral vote carries the day. And so kind of intuitively that bothers people, but you have to think about it. It's not you have to think like the founders did, and they were really wise, and we don't want to throw it out without thinking about it. The Electoral College has great value in certain ways because it makes smaller groups important. So when you think of the Cuban Americans in Florida as a voting bloc, they become very important. When you think of the steel workers in Pennsylvania, their concerns and they as a voting bloc become very, very important, as do Arab Americans in Michigan. If you had a national election without kind of the state-by-state process of the Electoral College, those groups would be invisible. Nobody would campaign to them, nobody would think about them, nobody would consider them. And you would have a race that would take place on the 2 coasts, the population centers. So you'd have people campaigning on the East Coast and on the West Coast. And you wouldn't have attention to Michigan or Ohio. And I think it has great value the way that it is, and I think it's consistent with the intention of the founders. The primary process works well with the Electoral College because, again, it gives the state great importance as a political entity. And you have primaries that take place one after the other. And the primaries are a little bit different because with the Electoral College, each state is winner take all. But the primary process varies. It varies over time, and it varies between the political parties. Now, the Republicans, kind of their nature is to be more organized. And so they often will have more of a winner-take-all, where the Democrats often have it set up for proportional representation. So if you have, in some years, now it changes when they have the national convention, but sometimes if you get 5%, you get some representation, which keeps a candidate with less support alive longer, and it gives that candidate a longer time to be viable and to maybe develop support. And they have a chance to redevelop their momentum, and so it's not over so quickly. And so, the primary process is really important too, because the intention of the founders, the reason you have electors, is that they wanted knowledgeable people to collaborate and discuss the candidates and choose a candidate that they knew was the best one. And so when you have the retail politics of Iowa and you have the retail politics of New Hampshire, you have, in essence, contemporary electors. And so what the founders wanted was people from each state to come and convene and talk. And we don't have that anymore, but we sort of have a similar process with Iowa and New Hampshire. And so it seems so quirky, but think about it. It really is a valuable thing. And they had a process where the electors would pick a first choice, who they always assumed would be the favorite son from that state. So all the electors from Virginia are going to choose somebody from Virginia. But then they were to choose a second candidate. So it ensured that the electors didn't all choose a person from each of their states. And so, in essence, it's a little bit different process institutionally, but I think it fulfills the same function.